डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Namaskar students, welcome to Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University Video Aids Lecture Sessions. I, Dr. Nikita Gadani, Assistant Professor in Department of English, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. Today's our topic is Paper 1 Introduction to Literature, Unit 7 Literature and Ideas. So, components of our presentations are objectives, then we'll have introduction, then we'll have literature and ideas, then we'll have relationship between literature and ideas, then we'll have a conclusion, then we have questions and answer exercises, and then we have a reference and web resources. So, moving further, the objectives of our presentations are to discuss what is literature, then understand how a literary piece of work can be interpreted in different ways, and get the idea of philosophy and ideas. So yes, what you can see in this image, a man with a book and so many ideas? Yes, it's true. Reading gives you amount of knowledge in each area. It provides you solution of every problems, as you can see here in this image. So moving forward, talking about the literature and ideas and how it is interconnected, that reading literature and philosophy provides new perspectives and insights of issues in the human experience. Literature generally reflects life. Literature aids in making the issues of human experiences more alive and personal. Issues of human experience become more alive to challenge and interview a person by being presented in both literary and philosophical forms. By understanding the relationship between literature and ideas, one can acquire the knowledge of relation and rational investigation of questions about human existence as well as about the ethics. So now talking about the literature and ideas and its meaning and its relevance, literature has been commonly used to designate fictional and imaginative writing, that is poetry, prose, fiction and drama. It designates other writings including philosophy, history and even scientific works. In larger sense of the term literary, the philosophical writing of Plato and William James, the historical writing of Edward Gibbon, the scientific essays of Huxley and the psychoanalytical lecture of Sigmund Freud and are included in literature. The word literature is derived from the Latin litera, that means learning and writing a grammar. It is considered as writing formed with letters. Literature can be defined in the strict sense as a written, imaginative and literary work with significance and a permanent artistic value. It must be imaginative, it must be written, and then it must contain artistic values. R.J. Rees defined the term literature as a permanent expressions in words of some thoughts or feeling or ideas about the life and the world. Literary writings have permanence. Literature should be a mirror of human nature. It should be close to the life. This closeness comes out of actual human experiences. Again, the quality of this experience is more important than the quantity. As Hudson says, literature is a vital record of what man have seen in the life, what they have experienced of it, and what they have thought and feel about those aspects of it which have the most immediate and the enduring interest of all of us. It is thus fundamentally an experience of life through the medium of language. Literature is writing which expresses and communicates thoughts, feelings and attitudes towards life. Literature can only come alive through the creative imagination. There are some qualities which we expect to find in good literature. These qualities are lifelikeness, sincerity and suggestiveness. While reading a poem or a novel or a drama, we should feel that the feelings and ideas expressed in a correspondence to our own. We feel pleasure in reading a piece of literature because it we find the reflection of our own joys and sorrow. A good literature has sincerity to oneself, to one's own experience of life and the truth of things as one has seen it. A writer, if he wants to live, must write at what he lies his own doors and must report faithfully only that which he has lived through, seen, thought, felt, and known for himself. Without sincerity, nothing great can be accomplished in the literature. The Divine Comedy of Dante still appeals us because it is a sincere attempt. The tragedies of Shakespeare have their roots deep down in the sorrows and silent struggle. Literature must be suggestive, it should have the power of our emotions and imaginations rather than our intellect. Literature has an evaluative as well as the descriptive functions. Philosophy, now talking about the philosophy and conceptual framework. Philosophy and ideas, conceptual framework. Philosophy in general sense is a belief or a system of beliefs which are accepted by some group of schools. The philosophy of literature deals with the question, what is art? Since ages, the fundamental questions that remained preoccupied among the philosophers was the relationship between ideas in the human mind and the world existing outside the mind. Plato displays a strong hostility to the context of the literary culture of his period and proposes a strong censorship of popular literature in his Utopia. In philosophy, ideas are usually taken as a mental representation of images of some objects. Ideas can be abstract concepts and do not present as mental images. Many philosophers have considered ideas to be a fundamental ontological category of being. The capacity to create and understand the meaning of ideas is considered to be an essential and defining features of human beings. In a popular sense, an idea arises in a reflexive, spontaneous manner, even without thinking or serious reflection. For example, when we talk about the idea of a person or a place, a new or original idea can often lead to innovation. One view on the nature of ideas is that there exist some ideas that is called innate ideas, which are so general and abstract that they could not have arisen as a representation of an object of our perception, but rather were in some senses always present. Another view holds that we only discover ideas in the same way that we discover the real world from personal experiences. Humans acquire all or almost all their behavior traits from their nature, that is, for life experiences. Plato in ancient Greece was one of the earliest philosophers to provide a detailed discussion of ideas and the thinking process. Plato argued in dialogues such as the Phaedo, Symposium, Republic, and Timeo that there is a realm of ideas or forms which exist independently of anyone who may have thoughts on these ideas, and it is the ideas which distinguishes mere opinion from knowledge. For unlike material things which are transient and liable to the country, ideas are unchanging and nothing but just what they are. Plato seems to assert forcefully that material things can only be objects of opinion. Real knowledge can only be had of unchanging ideas. Material things are seen but not intellect, while the ideas are intellect but not seen. For Descartes, knowledge took the form of ideas and philosophical investigation and the deep consideration of ideas. In a Lockean view, there are really two types of ideas, complex and simple. Simple ideas are the building blocks for much more complex ideas. While the mind is wholly passive in the reception of simple ideas, it is very active in the building of complex ideas. Immanuel Kant defines an idea as opposed to a concept, that is regulative ideas are ideas that one must tend towards but by definitions may be completely realized. Liberty, according to Kant, is an idea. In how to make our idea clear, C. S. Peirce proposed that clear idea is defined as one when it is detained such as it will be recognized wherever it is met and no other will be mistaken for it. If it fails for this clearness, it is said to be obscure. G. F. Stott and J. M. Baldwin in the Dictionary of the Philosophy and Psychology defines idea as the reproductions with a more or less adequate image of an object not actually present to the senses. It should be observed that an idea is the narrower and the generally accepted senses of mental reproduction is a frequently composite when a man, for example, has obtained an idea for chair is a general by comparison with which he can say this is a chair and that what is the table is an abstract idea distinct from the reproduction in his mind of any particular chairs. Furthermore, a complex idea may not have any corresponding physical object, though its particular elements may be the reproduction of the actual perceptions. Divergent studies explored the spread of ideas from culture to culture. Some anthropological theories hold that all culture imitate ideas from one or a few original cultures. Cultures are influenced by one another. In the mid 20th century, social scientists began to study how and why ideas spread from one person to culture to another. Johnson claimed that they are mental images or internal visual pictures. As such, they have no relation to words or the concepts which are designated by verbal names. An ideology is a collection of normative beliefs and values that an individual or a group holds for other than purely epistemic reason. Ideology must be seen neither as hegemonic or static. Ideology is accepted as a common sense view or a things presented by the power holder class. In this way, the interest of the ruling class is secured, while others, a Marxist critic, name his imaginary consciousness, and Ronald Barthes, a postmodernist, call it is a myth. Both of them agrees that this is a weapon of the power holders used in inject that dominant ideology of the society. Another Marxist critic, Thierry, shares the same idea, saying that ideology does not only inject its own beliefs, but it is also a denigrates ideas which might challenges it, excluding vital form of thought, obscuring social reality. The use of language by the power holders as a weapon to inject the dominant ideology of the society is argued by Lacan and Kristeva. Now, looking forward, the relationship between literature and ideas, one can say that philosophy and literature involves the literary treatment of philosophers and philosophical themes. And we can say that the literature of philosophy and the philosophical treatments of issues raised by literature. The philosophy of literature. Many attempts to interpret poetry as a kind of a philosophy or a philosophy as a kind of a poetry, or to identify the study of either poetry or philosophy with the history of ideas. The relationship between the philosophy and literature is not a thing to be discovered and described once for all, but rather a question constantly recreated by writers, critics, and philosophers responding to a new situation. Attempts to define the relationship between the philosophy and literature have often been set out as binary oppositions versus universal versus particular reasons versus imagination, insight versus emotion, argument versus form. The first level of the relationship is the fact that both literature and philosophy are social phenomena. According to Oladipo, they are social not just in the general sense of being produced by people who make up the society, rather, they are social in majorly two ways. Both philosophy and literature are born out of human experiences of an individual or a group, and they often treat very abstract matters that arises from a reflective pondering on the phenomena of life. Both are products of the culture. Again, they are social in another expressions. They are both produced for the intellectual and practical needs of the society. From the points above, it is lucid that the both disciplines focuses on the same objects which can be constructed as the human person in the various aspects of his experience. They both reflect the quest for the better understanding and taking the problems of human existence. The second broad connection of two disciplines is the idea that they are both constructions in language. Philosophy develops concept and clarities, then while literature engages these words to communicate ideas, figures and moral principles and to enlarge realities. Furthermore, both philosophy and literature mirrors the society together. With the society's development and state, the philosophy of an era tells of the nature of that age. Likewise, the literature of an epoch tells of the problems and the realities of that period. They both reflect the beliefs of man about realities. Hence, through the criticism of the ideas we live by, philosophy dishes out norms that should regulate the thinking and behavior of man in the society. In the same way, literature has themes that convey morality. For instance, Shakespeare's Hamlet. Both philosophy and literature are systematic presentation. They are not just some zigzags and mismatch of materials. Finally, philosophy and literature interacts in delving into the each other's area of discourse. Literal criticism is the philosophical analysis, judgments of works of art of literature. The associate professor of philosophy at Stanford University, Lanier, tributed to the debate of relationship, and it is apt to mention it at the juncture. He argues that great literature is often deeply philosophical and great philosophy is often great literature. For literature to take its rightful place and fulfill its function in the society, it has to be some sort of philosophy. In fact, some literature like Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet are widely termed philosophical. The cast philosophers as the guardians of the university reason inside and argument is to strip literature of its ambition to provide knowledge, thought and truth. It is also to ban passion and beauty from the philosophy. Often criticism reduces the literary text to an example of a pre-existing theory of philosophy. Literature works behind philosophy's back, yet its work is not outside philosophy but essentials to it, as the philosophy has to turn around to look behind itself to find fundamental illumination it can't find in any other way. By neglecting the term or return to literature, philosophy will overlook fundamental insights available only to the philosophers willing to stop, pause, and turn back and pick up the pulse strewn on a path he thought he had already explored. Criticism, the work of reading, is here connected to the idea of stopping, pausing, paying attention, and looking more closely. Keval wants to make a place for literature within philosophy, both because he thinks literature contains elimination of value of philosophy and because he thinks that the question of expressions and experience lie at the very heart of philosophy. On this view, criticism, the act of accounting for one's experience of a work of art, can be philosophy. We often begin reading by trying to get at least a general idea of what the work is about, what its major concerns and concepts are. At first, we may only form a hazy idea of the whole. To get a clearer view, we zoom in a key to concept, study the examples, circle back to the passages and that illuminates them, look at for the arguments, the contradictions and expectations. In the end, we come out with a workable understanding of the book's concern. If it is really fascinates us, we may engage with it again, maybe revise some of our initial impressions, try to get clear on why it strikes us the importance and reflect on what we can use it for in our own work. What can be the role of the literature is that context. Since literature is created to cater to the need of the powerful class in any existing society, it will pay lip service to the existing power structure. But the nature of literature, especially novel as a genre, would not abide by the rules of that society. Literature exposes the terrible weaknesses of every community and demonstrates how society through myths try to distinguish their serious flaws. Another critic agrees that with this view, he says that though literature belongs to the great system of constraint, all the same it has a special place in that system determined to seek beneath the questions itself, to cross boundaries, to ruthless or indigenously bring out the secret of the open, to displace rule, to control and to compel. The unmentionable to be told, it will thus tend to place itself outside the law, or at least take the burden of the scandal or revolt. More than any other form of language, it remains the discourse of infamy. It has the duty of saying that it most resistant to the being said the world, the secret of the most insufferable and the shameless. It is this special quality of the literature which make it its unique way of telling the truth. So now moving toward the conclusions, that what we have learned throughout this topic, that is literature and the qualities of literature, what is philosophy and ideas, and the relationship between the literature and ideas. So now we have questions. For example, give any two definitions of literature and on the basis of these definitions derive your concept about literature. So in these questions, what you need to do is that you need to write two definitions of the literature and then you need to mention what the concept of literature that is telling in this definitions. Now another, that is what are the qualities of good literature. As we already discussed the qualities of good literature, that what you need to do, that you need to mention here, that is the qualities of literature. Now another question, that is give an example to any one epic which shows the qualities of good literature. So here you need to give one example of one good epic which shows the qualities of good literature. Then what is philosophy, that we have already discussed. Then we have how ideas are conceptualized in philosophy. So now you need to combine your answer, that how philosophy and how ideas are represented through philosophy. What do philosophy and literature involve? So that you need to mention that how philosophy and literature are involved, as with the whole lecture is all about the philosophy and ideas and literature. Literature and philosophy are social phenomena, justify. So what you need to write is that the literature and philosophy are social phenomena. So do you really think that the literature and philosophy is a part of a society, or if they are part of a society, how? And what is the impact of literature and philosophy in the society, that you need to mention. Then we have references and web resources. So through this you can expand your knowledge on literature in society, how literature, philosophy and societies are interconnected, that you need. Through this resources you can get the idea about it. Thank you. I hope you understood the topic. See you in next session. Namaskar.
स्वाध्यायः परमः